Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Asian Football Show. This is episode 35. I am honored to be joined with my co-host Kenta Hagiwara and a special guest for today's episode, Rhysh Roshan Rai. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to speak to you guys. I've seen a few of your posts. I had a look at the chat that you did with I think it was Ashwin, the coach, recently. Really good job, and it's nice to see some young people taking a strong interest in Asian football. So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Before we start, if you guys are new to the channel or wherever you guys are watching this, make sure to, smash a follow button as well. Rish's social media links will be down in the description for you guys to check out as well. Unfortunately, Erfan couldn't join today's podcast due to some scheduling issues, but Rhysh and Erfan actually met, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sad that he's not here on the show. We met at the Asian Cup a couple of times. It's great to see him. Another, very talented young guy who has a great passion for Asian football, like you guys. But his loss, I would say. Now that I'm getting to speak to the two of you.
Yeah, if I don't mind adding, for the future of the show, our co-host here and Arya is going to be in Japan soon enough, and I'm over here on the East Coast of the US. Our recording times are going to be just brutal. So just as a heads up, going into the future, that there's going to be episodes where one of us are just not going to be able to make it because of the time zone differences, and so. In this case, it was Irfan, and it was very early in the morning for him for recording. So it's just an unfortunate part of this, though, I think.
And yeah, let's get started with.
Yeah, Reach. Obviously, with we're doing this as an ACL2 recap, but you're a former professional footballer as well, outside of your punditry career. Um, I think when we were kind of previewing this or preparing for this, and we were looking through some of your career, the one match that really stood out for us was the I guess called the Singapore Community Shield champions against Ike from Sweden. That match, can you kind of walk us through what that match was in terms of the setup and how that even happened? Because we were kind of struggling to get our heads around what that match entailed.
Yeah, I think it was an opportunity that sort of came about because I think AIK were in Asia or in this part of the world on a bit of a preseason tour, and we actually had one of their former players in our side back then. His name was Nicholas Sandberg. He just signed for us for that season, and so I think somebody sort of linked the two clubs together, and it became a community shield or a charity shield sort of event. And it was actually done as part of a celebration of the life of a former Singapore football legend who had passed away at that time. Dola Kasim, I think it was. I believe if I'm getting it right, and yeah, so it was sort of that kind of game that you look at and you think, wow, this is a European team, coming to play in Singapore. And I was personally quite fired up about it. Got the opportunity to play, and I remember it being a pretty good match. I think it finished 1-1. So there was actually a draw, and there was no penalty shootout or extra time or anything like that. So we actually were told to share the title. I think just in the community spirit and the friendliness of it all. So that essentially is how that sort of came about.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a match that I was really struggling to understand how it all came together. So it's good to get some context behind it. You joined the single ring club, Warriors Football Club, in 2010. They made the ACL the year prior in '09, and then you obviously are part of that team in 2010 to play in that Champions League. Can you kind of walk us through that Champions League season in particular with that team and what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, I think personally for me it was a dream sort of fulfilled because I was much like yourselves. As a young person growing up, I was a big fan of Asian football, and I used to watch quite a lot of it. I used to watch quite a lot of AFC Champions League when I was growing up. So it was always a personal ambition of mine to, try and get into a position where I could play in that competition. Obviously, growing up in Singapore, football isn't that huge here in terms of having sides that are continuously participating in the at that level. So it was sort of a thing where you think, yeah, that's a dream of mine. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but let's see what happens. And I managed to get a move to Singapore Armed Forces FC, and that allowed me to play in the AFC Champions League. We had to get through a couple of qualifying matches. I remember we played against Sriwijaya, Indonesian side. We beat them pretty comfortably. Jalan Besar Stadium, and then we came up against Mongtong United, a team from Thailand who were incredibly strong, and they were very difficult to sort of get past. They were actually, I would say, played the better football than we did in that playoff match, but we went through on penalties in the end. And they went pretty far, if I remember correctly, in the AFC Cup that season, and they did really well in that competition. But we were the ones who made it into the group stage. So for me, that was a huge moment, personally and professionally. And you get these sorts of experiences where you go out to Korea, you play against Suwon Blue Wings, you go out to China and there's a massive crowd and they're all booing you and they all hate you and they all want you to lose in that situation. And this it really is like a world away from what you experience playing in the league in Singapore, where maybe you get 1,000, 2,000 fans coming out for your matches, and then suddenly you're thrown into this world where things are just done at a different level, and the atmosphere is absolutely incredible. And we also got the chance to play against Gamba Osaka. So these games really challenge you, and they help you to realize exactly where you are in terms of your level and exactly what is out there. And you're able to sort of test yourself in these situations and get that true, I would feel, a true professional experience around it. Traveling to these countries, being able to take in the sights and sounds for a couple of days, going to training there, going into these matches, really, really wonderful experiences. And it's something that has also enabled me and given me the opportunity to do the work that I do these days. With Asian football and in AFC Champions League matches, having had that background as a player.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously talked about the three teams that you guys were in a group with, including the Japanese side, Gamba Osaka, and Samsung Blue Wings from Korea. Did you have a particular away match out of those three that was most memorable? Whether it was just the atmosphere that you were in, whether it was a result that you were able to get, or whatever it was. Is there a particular matchup in that group stage that was the most
I,
memorable for you?
Listen, I think all the away matches were fantastic because, as I said, just a completely different experience. The first game that we actually played was an away draw in China, and we were under pressure in that game as well. It was a full house, and it was a wonderful atmosphere to play in. And I remember one of my senior teammates, Singapore International, Daniel Bennett. I remember in the warm up, he came up to me to say, Rish, forget about everything that you're hearing and seeing around you. Just focus on the game. And I was like, I remember this vividly. I said to him, "Are you crazy? What do you mean forget about this? This is amazing, man. You come out onto the pitch for your warm-ups and it's noisy and everybody goes like woo and like they're all cheering you and there's a big screen in the stadium that's like essentially welcome to the Champions League. They're playing the Champions League video and things like that. So it's a kind of thing that when you sign up to be a professional player, when you get that opportunity to be a professional player, these are the moments that you want to be involved in. And so that really stands out for me. And the fact that we were able to get away with a draw was incredible. I know we were a little bit fortunate at certain times. One of our defenders actually had a handball on the goal line, which wasn't spotted by the referee. And this was before VAR. So so thankfully there was no VAR in that day. So yeah, we came away with a great draw. And even those matches that we played in Singapore, I mean, against those top quality teams in Gamba and Suwon were really great experiences. Going away to Gamba, conceding like 33 shots against us, and then only losing 3-0. Again, really fortunate in that situation to be playing those matches, playing at Suwon World Cup Stadium. I mean, that was great. Yes, there wasn't a big crowd there, but playing in a venue like that is again another highlight. And also, I picked up an assist for a goal that went on to win Goal of the Month in the competition for April. So for me, that was pretty cool as well. So I guess there's so many experiences and so many really good memories from that campaign that it's kind of difficult to pick one out. And then we've got that win, that famous win that we had against Henan at home. And so that was another huge moment for us and for Singapore football at that time.
Yeah, I'll bite on that win that you were talking about. Talk us through that match because I know it was going through the archives. can't say that I definitely watched that match live. Definitely didn't. But I was going through the archives, right? And it seemed like a very competitive match. Yeah, it was a back and forth goal scoring in the second half where you guys go up one day, they equalize, and you find the winner, in like the 70th, 80th minute, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Can you, as a player, walk us through that win and kind of the atmosphere, obviously, but also kind of the match as a whole from your perspective?
Yeah, and I think when you go into these games, you want to put in a really strong performance, and that was our attitude throughout the competition. We knew that we're not going to be one of the favorites in the group. Far from it. People will probably say we would finish bottom of the standings there, and so you really want to go out there and show and put on a good display. And I think we did that in a number of our games, and we continue to do that against Henan Genye as well when they came over to Singapore. I think what helps sides playing in this part of the world is the weather, the humidity that sometimes teams from East Asia perhaps struggle to sort of deal with, especially if they're coming here from much cooler conditions at that time of the year. So that is something that I found definitely has an impact. And playing at Jalan Besar with an artificial playing surface, some of these teams are not quite used to it, so that could be another factor. So I remember it was actually raining pretty heavily that day, which made it a very nice slick playing surface. We held firm in that match, created a few chances of our own, and I think we scored first, if I'm not wrong. We took the lead and we were trying to hold on. Hernan then equalized quite late on actually in the game, and I was probably thinking, or we were probably thinking at that point, perhaps a chance had gone for a win. But then I remember after Erwan Gunawan had scored the opener for us, Daniel Bennett, I think, scored the winner later on in that match. And I mean, wild celebrations, right? Because we were then on the brink of picking up a huge result. The first time a Singapore club had ever won an AFC Champions League match. So again, big moment for us, for Singapore football. And huge for the fans of the club as well. And we didn't end up finishing bottom of the group, which was something I guess exceeded expectations in that sense.
Yeah, and adding on to that, after you had a move to Home United, now currently known as Lion City Sailors, which we're gonna talk about a lot in a moment. How was that experience like?
Yeah, it was good. I was actually a former Home United academy player, so I played for the youth teams from under 16, about 4 years from under 16 to under 18 level, and then in Singapore we have national service, so I went away to sort of go and do that, and I actually almost left the game completely while I was doing my national service because I just thought, I don't think I'm gonna be able to cut it in the professional game here in Singapore, and thankfully I didn't give up on it. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's just the way sometimes things pan out. Ended up at Home United again after my time with Balestier and with the Singapore Armed Forces FC. It was nice to be back at the club. I was very familiar there, very familiar with some of the youth coaches who were there in my time as well. But I had a few injuries that season. Played a few matches here and there, and I didn't really. There were a lot of players. There were a few issues with the coach at the time, Lee Liam Seng, who is a bit of quite a tough character to get along with on a personal level. So it wasn't really on the pitch, I would say, the best season for me in terms of my career overall. I think I had better seasons with SAF and with Balestier certainly. So I felt sort of came to a definite conclusion in terms of my professional career and me sort of deciding, what, I think I've sort of had enough of this. I've lived my dream. I've played for 5 or 6 years at the professional level, and in Singapore, football salaries aren't the biggest, aren't the greatest, and it's not like you can retire off a playing career. You still have got to go out there and get a job. And how it works in this country is that even if I had played football for 10 years, let's say I was 35 and I stopped playing, I come out into the working world, and then what's going to happen? People are just going to be like, well, yeah, what sort of experience do you have aside from playing the game, in the corporate world? So at times I felt there was that sort of attitude, unless of course you go into coaching, then it's a different story. So while I was playing, I tried to develop myself in other areas. I got my degree completed in mass communications, in journalism, and in communication policy. So I made sure I had that. I did my coaching badges as well. So I took time to sort of develop myself while I was having a professional playing career. And I feel in Singapore that's sort of the way to go. You need to make sure that you've got something to back you up. And so once that finished, I went into coaching for a bit. I coached for about 4 years, but while that was still going on, I had the opportunities to get into the broadcasting arena as well.
Yeah, I was about to come to the broadcasting world and kind of ask you, well, how did this whole punditry commentary start for you? Is it something that you always wanted to do, or is it just you got an offer and you're like, you know what, I'll hop into it and see what happens? So why did you choose punditry and commentary, I guess, would be the question here.
Yeah, I mean, when I stopped playing, I didn't actually know what I was going to do, what my next stage was going to be. I thought, since I've got a coaching qualification, I'll go and do that for a while and see how it goes. And that was okay. But whilst I was also playing, there were a couple of approaches from broadcasters here in Singapore about doing potentially some punditry on Premier League matches in England. And so I decided to go down and take that opportunity to do it. I didn't actually get the chance to do many matches because it sort of clashed with the schedule. So I guess that was always an avenue and an opportunity to go in and do that. But whilst I was coaching, someone reached out from a company here in Singapore to say, listen, we've got a football channel and we're doing football content. We want you to come in and do some punditry, but also can you be an associate producer? So do some production work, write scripts, and at the same time get in front of the camera and help us out with our broadcasts. Do previews, do shows about football, and that is pretty much how it started. So I was doing that for about a year and a half. And I decided that I really liked it. I kind of was decent at it as well. But again, the next step, when that company sort of the contract ended and when it closed down, I sort of had to figure out again, what am I going to do? I was still coaching, but I needed something else to sort of supplement the income. And an opportunity with Fox Sports Asia came about. So when I went into Fox Sports Asia, I wasn't looking at doing punditry. I wasn't looking at going on camera. I went in to actually do, a production job. I wanted to be a news producer because that was what I had experience with. That was, something that fell in line with what I'd studied in university as well. And when I went for the interview, when I went for the writing test, someone over there actually said, you know what? You might actually look pretty good on camera, so why don't you give it a go? And I said, sure. I mean, if there's an opportunity to go and do that, I absolutely love to do that. I mean, punditry, commentary is one of the best things you can do in the broadcasting world for me. If you're a football fan, you get paid to watch football, you get paid to talk about football. So definitely, I was like, yeah, give me that job, and managed to do well enough to have a nice long role in that position with Fox Sports Asia.
As someone who has watched tons of Asian football, hearing your voice is a common occurrence, right? So I actually never thought that I would have actually been in a position where I had a podcast and I could interview you, or we would interview you. So one thing that I really do want to add here is within the Iranian diaspora, you're loved a lot, especially since that game, which I think was a game that, if I remember well, you did cover. Your voice when I think John Bash scored that penalty was everywhere. I remember that day. Sorry, Kenta, you're gonna hate this part. You can cover your ears, man. Was all over Iranian media, was all over just broadcast, social media, everything, and lots of people were enjoying that moment. So we hear you tons in AFC tournaments and even in hosting draws and things like that. But do you do any other sports or competitions and kind of guide us through some of that experience outside of the football world?
Yeah, definitely do. I mean, before I get to that, I just want to say, I mean, Arya, you saying that stuff, it really, makes me very emotional about it, because I'm not the kind of personality, I'm quite a private person, and you don't fully understand potentially the sort of impact it might have with people out there, right? So I've done podcasts before where people have asked, oh, do you know that, you're sort of like a personality or a celebrity and something. I don't think of it that way at all. Like, I just love doing this job and I'm passionate about it. So to sort of hear from people like you that, it's a big deal. It actually means a lot, because I do put in a lot of work to make sure that I do these teams justice, that people outside, that Asians feel proud, that there's an Asian commentator there who understands what's going on and who feels what they're feeling. So it really means a lot to me, and you got my hair standing. Yeah, you got me like those goosebumps. So thank you very much for that. I really, really do appreciate it. And it just makes me feel like, yeah, this is something that has an impact. Going back to your question, yes, I think if you're sort of just doing football commentary in my part of the world, it's not really enough to survive. I think financially you need to be doing other things as well, because sports broadcasting here isn't very strong. The channel Fox Sports Asia closed about 4 years ago now. And when I went out of that, I was thinking, I've got to try and again scramble to figure out what to do. And thankfully, opportunities came about to do other shows on the Disney Channel and or Disney Plus rather, and then to do other sports and things like that. So Asian Games was for me a massive one in Hangzhou. I did something like 10, 11 different sports there. I was really thrown into the deep end. I had to do things like Courage. Have you guys heard of Courage? No, go Google
Nope.
that, man. It's a
No idea.
it's a Central Asian martial art. It's kind of like it has elements of judo. So I had to do things like Courage. I had to do like taekwondo. So many things, man. Basketball, sports that I wasn't really familiar with from a broadcasting perspective. And the funny thing is, I only got to do I think like 2 or 3 football matches when I was there in Hangzhou. So most of my commentary was with other sports, sepak takraw, a bit of wrestling, yeah, man, sport climbing, all kinds of stuff, which was absolutely fantastic and really gave me a lot of confidence and belief to say, you know what, I can do other sports as well, because I think there's a bit of a formula with it when it comes to commentary. As long as you don't pretend to be too much of an expert in these situations, you just do the commentator's job, because it's journalism, right? You're sort of introducing the athletes, you're setting the scene, explaining to people what this sport is, what's going on, who are the athletes or the players to look out for, and then you're describing actions. As long as you don't try and get too technical, you should be okay. And so I do all kinds of sports now. I'm very open to working on various different events. I've done a lot of tennis recently. I've done quite a bit of badminton, especially in China with the Badminton Asia Championship. So I definitely have expanded my repertoire working in commentary. So yeah, it's not just football these days.
Coming back to the football, I think this is a question that everyone has on their minds: is there a favorite football game that you've covered, or a favorite moment from the Champions League to the Asian Cup, or possibly beyond that?
Wow, so many. I mean, again, I've been in such a fortunate position to be able to cover so many big matches in my career. I guess some of them that stand out would be 2018 AFC Champions League final. I actually got the chance to go to the Azadi Stadium, which was a huge dream of mine. To go to one of the grand venues of Asian football. So to be able to sort of achieve that and to go there and see what it was like in person was an amazing experience. And I loved being in Iran. I loved Tehran. It sort of blew my mind as to what sort of city it was. You don't really know until you're there, right? People don't really know what these places are like until you're actually on the ground. And people were so friendly. And as I find in my time going across all of Asia, in fact, everyone's great, man. And I sometimes hate the fact that, we make so many assumptions culturally about people and where they are in different parts of the world, and we think, oh, they're this, they're that. We're not that much different from each other. Most people, I would say, want to live in harmony, want to live in peace with each other. And I know I'm going off track here, but these are the things that you sort of learn when you go out and travel across the continent. But yeah, that experience, Persepolis against Kashima Antlers, was big. Being at the finals with Al Hilal and Urawa was also huge for me. Going to the Asian Cup in Qatar, doing that match, Iran against Japan, was an absolute classic. Sorry, Kenta, and I just think having all these moments in your life, in your broadcasting career, are huge. And doing that Asian Cup final, Qatar and Jordan. So being there throughout the tournament, again, another real highlight. So these are probably some of the matches. I'm sure I've missed some more, but it's really difficult when you've been lucky enough to work on all sorts of matches and all sorts of competitions.
Yeah, I was going to say I thought you were going to say the Lestienne goal in the Lion City Sailors. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was watching the game live. I had goosebumps when he scored, and that the commentary that you added just made it a million times better. Quite literally, I felt like a Lion City Sailor supporter for like half a second. I felt like I was in the stadium. It was that great of a moment. But yeah, you mentioned Press Police versus Kashima Antlers. I know Kenta absolutely hates his guts, but I want to give a huge shout out to Yuma Suzuki. Great player.
Yes, hey, I got to agree with that. I'm not quite sure why he doesn't get his props over in Japan. Kenta, you got an answer for that?
I feel like it has to do with just kind of the personality of a player he is, right? He's not necessarily the most like I don't know. Japanese football, I think, a lot of times has the culture aspect of like being respectful and like uh,
Yes.
I won't use any other adjectives. And he doesn't necessarily always fall in line with what is considered to be the norm, which can always be a helpful tool for a team. I guess you can rattle your opposition, I suppose, at times, but it can also lead to a lot of people, including myself, not necessarily being the biggest fan of a particular player, I guess. Yeah, I kind of want to go back into this kind of ACL2 final that we had recently. Um, Particularly obviously with the Lion City Sailors hosting in the final. Can you talk to us about kind of the significance of this club as a whole in the history and just what's the best way to word this? Their significance in the world of
Yeah.
kind of Singaporean football as a whole.
Oh no, I completely get what you mean, and you handled that very well, by the way. That question, I know I put you on the spot, and I turned into the interviewer. So I like the way you answered that and the way you sort of turned it around back on me now with the AFC Champions League too. Yeah, listen, it was such a great moment for Singapore football. I think when you have a Singapore side taking part in competitions like this, you don't really expect. I don't think anyone in Singapore expected the Land City Sailors to get as far as they did. I think we would have hoped for potentially a place in the quarterfinal, and that would already have been a very good performance by the Sailors. The fact that they went all the way was really huge for Singapore football, and I think what it did was send a message to say this is what is possible if we get behind it, if we actually invest in it properly, if you put the money into it, because that is what you need. That is what it takes. There's no getting around it. You look at clubs in this competition. You look at the big clubs in Asia. They've all spent big money to get to where they are. That is what is required. But also there was an immense sense of fight, an immense sense of belief. The Sailors gave Singaporean football fans an opportunity to sort of dream and to believe that we could do something. We don't get these moments in Singapore football a lot. People talk about Malaysia Cup days. I mean, that was a domestic cup competition. No disrespect to the people who played back then, but this is so different now. You're playing on a continental stage against higher level teams, against higher level opposition. And this is where you should aspire to be. And so for the Sailors to give us that opportunity to be there, to rub shoulders with the likes of Sanfrecce Hiroshima, with Sydney FC, with Sharjah FC, these are normally sides who play at AFC Champions League level, and they should be playing at that level. And to still push these teams. Yes, I know the Sailors got very fortunate with the first leg, the overturning of the result from the first leg against Sanfrecce. But they got the job done in the second leg. They had to see that one out, and they were impressive against Sydney FC as well, and went into the final. And the fact that the players were disappointed after losing to Sharjah, I think says a lot. It wasn't well, we're still happy because we gave it our best. They were actually literally gutted. And so were a number of fans. And I think that says a lot. I think that sends a really huge message about how much belief they really gave us here in Singapore. So it was a really significant moment. And you're just hoping now that there's an opportunity to really build on this, and that we don't sort of regress again. Singapore football at times has had these it's ups and downs. I would say more downs than ups, and you hope that this is something that we can look to try and use as a platform to push on with.
Obviously, we mentioned the result against Sanfrecce Hiroshima, but I guess particularly at home, do you think there was a most memorable match in this run, in terms of how significant it was for the club and the fans. The first one that comes to mind, I don't know if this is what you would agree with, but is that Sydney FC home match, the 2-0 win at home.
Right.
But I'm curious to hear if there's a particular match in your eyes that was like kind of the defining moment for this run for this club.
I think it was actually the match before that. I think it was actually the second leg against Sanfrecce. I think the Sailors players, I mean, they've come out to say themselves that after that 6-1 loss in the first leg, they thought they were done. I mean, all of us thought they were done, right? And then, the AFC gets a call from someone in Australia saying, hey, Jermaine's, you gotta you gotta keep a lookout for him because he's been suspended, but he's been playing. They've been a little bit naughty. So whoever it was in Australia that made that call, I think the Lion City Sailors should send over a package, a gift, a basket of some kind for alerting the AFC to that. And yeah, I mean, I think they then sort of believed that they could do something at Jalan Besar, and they did. Scored the first goal in that match through Leonard T. Ended up drawing that game 1-1, and I think it was, I heard this from Haris Harun, the captain, I think it was after that result against Sanfrecce from the first leg that was overturned, where the coach actually said, you guys have to believe that you can compete at this level. You have to believe that you can do this, you can play anyone, and I think that really gave them that momentum, that push to go into that game. Drew 1-1 against Sanfrecce, who were probably the best side in this competition. And I mean, can you imagine if you think about it, being a player and you beat, one of the tournament favorites, and you go into a semi-final against Sydney FC. If you beat Sanfrecce, you're probably thinking Japan are like top tier when it comes to Asian football, and this is a top Japanese side. So why can't we beat Sydney? Why can't we go all the way and take on someone from West Asia in the final? So I would say it was that 1-0 draw that really, I think, gave them a lot of belief going into the Sydney game, and then they carried that into the Sydney game as well, and got those results that they needed to put themselves into the final.
Yeah, speaking of results, I think a few episodes ago when Erfan, Kenta, and I made our predictions, I mean, we all said Shabab Al-Ali, we said Traktor, we said Sanfrecce Hiroshima, Sharjah, I think, was there too. I'm not too sure. I don't think anyone really ever gave a shout to the Lion City Sailors, so I think, at least I'm going to speak for myself here, I think Kenta might have the same opinion, but I think when Lion City Sailors did make it to the final, we were all like, oh my god, this might actually happen. And yeah, hopefully this is something that will happen again in the future, whether it's going to be with Lion City Sailors or another underdog team. But with Asian football, this is the sort of matchups that you get. You always get some surprises, and that's what's great with the Asian game. Yeah, coming back to the game itself, more just broad questions. I mean, is there any players that you think did well, not only for Lion City, but we got to show some love for Sharjah as well. They won the cup as well. What were your overall thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I don't think it was a classic of a final. I think it was very dramatic towards the end in the final 20-25 minutes of the match. But otherwise, it was actually pretty tense. There weren't too many clear-cut opportunities for either side, and it was really even. I thought what Sharjah did well was to limit the Lion City Sailors' threat on the counter-attack. I'm going to go into a little bit of tactics talk here, but the Sailors throughout the competition have essentially sort of built their success upon a soak and strike, right? To put it very basically, sit, counter, and play with that intensity on the break, on the transition, and try and be very compact defensively. And it's a strategy that worked for them throughout the tournament. And I think Sharjah, it's a sign of respect for the Lion City Sailors, the fact that they sort of also, I think, tweaked their approach in this game. Because when you look at the numbers, it was actually 50-50% in terms of possession, which is something rare, something very different for the Lion City Sailors. So they almost had to answer a very different question. They didn't have a side pushing on into them. They didn't have a side sort of saying, we'll leave spaces open for you to go on the counter-attack. Maxime Lestien, Sharjah did very well to always make sure they had a double team on him. Whether it was Luanzinho or Caio, who would go out onto the left-hand side to help the left back in that position. Lestien had a very limited impact on that game up until he scored. He didn't create much for the Lion City Sailors in that match. So they actually tactically, you saw at times as well with Sharjah, they would sit back in their own half in a 4-4-2 and say to the Lion City Sailors, you try and break us down now. We'll see what you have in terms of what you can do with the ball. Because we know you've been dangerous without the ball. Let's see what you can do now. And I think that helped to sort of stifle the Sailors a little bit and stifle the threat that they posed in attack, because they had 16 shots, but they only managed 3 of them on target, the Lion City Sailors. And I think Sharjah managed 5 on target from their 12 overall. So it was actually quite a balanced game of football. And Sharjah deserve props. I mean, when it comes to the final, it's all about taking your chances and making the most of them. Again, one of the oldest cliches in the footballing world is form goes right out the window. And it does in situations in finals. And they deserve the win simply because they got the goals they needed to. Maloney, I thought, was absolutely fantastic for Sharjah in central midfield. Majid was excellent as well. So much experience. He was a real physical presence. And I thought Maloney and Majid, in central midfield, controlled the game so well for Sharjah. Whether it was in an attacking sense or whether it was helping out defensively, they both were excellent. And then Maloney as well, when he had to go and play at left back, pops up on the other side of the pitch and gets a goal. So he was really, really impressive for me. I think Adel, the goalkeeper, in the lead up towards the final, played a big part. I mean, those matches against Al Tawoun, he saved the penalty in the second leg. Sharjah could also have not been in the final if it wasn't for Adel and the work that he did. Saving those penalties against Al Hussein and then against Shabab Al Ahli in the quarterfinal. So he had a big part to play as well in their run through this competition. And of course, you can't forget the goals of Lonzinho and Caio through the season for Sharjah. So definitely deserving winners. And they created history themselves by picking up their first continental title.
Yeah, this was also something that Sharjah had to win. I've seen lots of criticisms from them from just the whole calendar year because every competition that they've been in, they've been dethroned by Shabab Al Ahli. So this was the only cup that final that they were in that. They had to win. They had to win, quite frankly, because they did not have a great season, if we're being honest, domestically. And that's pretty much it for this interview, unless you want to add something or Kenta wants to add something. Thank you very much for joining the podcast. It has been an honor. Guys, again, if you guys are new to the channel or again on wherever you guys are listening, make sure to smash the follow button. Give us some feedback as well. And Rhysh's social media links will be down in the description for you guys to follow as well. Any last words?
I just want to say thank you guys for the opportunity to speak to you. I know I go on quite a bit, and it's a job hazard, but I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm very happy, as I said at the start, to be getting the chance to talk to you. Young Asian football fans, and really doing your part to try and help grow the game here. So I wish you all the best, and I hope we meet in person somewhere down the line. That would be great.